Hi, this is Tina Chansey, and with me is Ellen Farrell. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I've been asking everybody how they started playing recorder.
Well, I started playing recorder because I heard a recorder on the radio, and
How old were you?
I was in college, I think, or maybe, yeah, I guess I was in college, and went out to visit my brother, and he and his wife, I told them about this lovely little piece of music that I had heard, and it was really, I think, just a folk song, and I was out there at the time of my birthday happened, and they bought me a recorder for my birthday.
That's nice.
And
Yeah.
it was really sweet, and it's, I just started teaching myself, and then took some classes at the 92nd Street Y in New York, and then started going to other workshops, moved to Washington, and found
Where
people
there is
to
a
play
pretty good
with.
recorder culture.
There is, and getting better, and getting better.
And you've started a series?
Yes, started after I retired. I decided, in fact, one of the reasons I retired was to really be able to devote more time to music. And so not only did I want to take lessons and have more time to practice and really improve my own performance, but also sort of improve the culture, early music community, make a contribution to the early music community in Washington. And so I had some friends form this group called Capital Early Music, and we bring in people to do a concert and then a workshop, an all-day workshop, and we're up to 3 a year now. So
Great.
It's been quite successful.
Well, I like the piece that you brought in,
Oh, thanks.
the Visionary Ground. We were just starting to talk about it, and we realized that there are a lot of issues. Tell me about some of them.
Yes. Well, this is a set of divisions on a ground, just a very simple four chord ground, F, B flat, or perhaps G, C, and then F. And what we're finding is that in a couple of the cases, the notes that the composer, and it's an anonymous composer, that the composer wrote in a measure which should be, don't really correspond to the chord that underlays the division.
Though it's a little hard to tell, isn't it, whether the composer wrote it this way or whether the transcriber was just kind of sloppy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were mentioning that this is, we're playing from an edition that was published by John Walsh, I think.
Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Walsh in England, who was known for basically plagiarizing other people's music and not
Very
doing
successfully, actually.
Yes, that's right, and not doing always a great job. I guess maybe he made mistakes on purpose to be able to say, "Oh no, I went using so and so's music. This is somebody else's," and you see, look at these differences. Whatever. Yeah. At any rate, there's not a lot. There are errors in his publications.
Though I'm wondering. Well, here's a question. It could be a few things. It could be that he wrote it that way and didn't particularly care what the chord was underneath him. Mm-hmm. It could be that somebody was sloppy when they transcribed it. Both of those things are kind of interesting to me because these days we stay in chord.
Right.
We've got a chord, we stay there. But in the past, I think that they may have thought of chords a little bit more like neighbors. That this goes F, B flat, C, F. Well, the B flat chord is right near the G chord.
Right.
And so, 2 and 4 are they're not interchangeable, but kind of come and go. And in this particular case, he goes to a G chord a whole lot, even though we see B flat.
That's right.
Now it could be a G6, B flat D F, B flat D G, and that would make a lot of sense. But I think that this points to one of the points I want to make, which is music that was derived from improvisation is a little different. The rules are different. Yeah. When we first talked about what we were going to do today, you asked me a great question. I'm not even sure you meant it as a question. You kind of meant as a, well, of course, but da, da, da. And you were saying, well, of course, the whole point of improvisation, isn't that kind of close to memorization? Because what you do when you improvise is that you memorize a series of patterns and then you just stick them in.
Yes, yeah, I do remember saying that, yeah.
Yeah. And I have been thinking for a few days of how to discuss that, because while there's some truth to it, it's a little bit like saying, well, I'm going to make cookies and I have this flour, and then everybody's waiting for and. What do you got to put in the cookies? That copying some pre-existent patterns and stuff, it's a very useful preliminary step in a lot of things. But it actually, you can improvise without doing that. You know what that provides? It provides the style of the piece. It gives you a sense of the style.
The pattern does, you mean?
Yeah, when you kind of study the patterns. And I tell you, there are a number of books that are tutors in the Renaissance and Baroque period, and they're very good with giving people patterns to practice. I guess the biggest is the Ortiz.
Right.
Diego Ortiz, his
Right.
treatise on ornaments and cadences.
Right.
And that was 1553, and his whole thing is you have a fourth and you can fill it these 5 or 10 ways.
Or 20 or...
Yeah, 30, right. And you have a fifth, and then so he goes by each intervals, and then he does cadence patterns like dum ba da da dee, and ornaments the cadence pattern like that, 15 or 20 different ways. And obviously he meant for people to use that as a basis and then get started.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the way that was really what prompted my comment was, how do you even go about practicing those? Or,
Yeah.
it's like I've looked at those books, I've, played through them, and I just don't have a good way to incorporate them into some kind of musical practice.
Well, that's because I think they're really like building blocks. They're as far removed from the final music as the flour is to the cookies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is it then that connects them, right? What the question is. And one way to look at it, and I'm all for looking at it in some way that's kind of outside the usual, I play this music and here it is, just like this. I play this music, it looks like this, it sounds like that, there we are. How am I going to interpret it? Because this is one step more, and I think this is more like a conversation. That we're having a conversation, we may have talked a little about the type of thing we're going to say, but we didn't plan it exactly. And as the conversation develops, it takes us into different places. And I think of improvisations as conversations. Now, it could be between you and the bass line. It could be between you and who you are today, how you're feeling. But it depends pretty much on the type of thing you're improvising. If you've got, a drone, and you're improvising something medieval, da, 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 that you've got a drone, you're improvising to the pitch, and you're looking for the tensions and releases that happen as you do that. That's a different style of improvisation, like, Yop-a-da-dum, ba-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-dee-dee-dee-da-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Now that would be improvising a French prelude, let's say, before you ended up playing a whole sonata, and you might improvise over that chord pattern or just maybe over a C.
Okay.
And that's improvising in French Baroque style as opposed to the medieval style. They improvised it where it was basically more sustained notes and notes that were a certain relationship to the sustained drone.
Okay.
So it comes down to a few things, which is your sense of how things are going, like keeping track of what's going on as you play, what it is you feel like you want to say, with the music, and then what story you're going to tell, really.
Right, 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 right.
That you'd tell a different story if you were thinking that there was a lot of tension in this particular piece. Then you'd tell if you felt like it was 6/8 and it was cheerful and it was, So the question here is, how do you train people to hear, to keep listening as things are going on, and to feel comfortable having things come out? And one of the first things is people think that improvisation is free, all free. And if you're doing, that's free improvisation. But most improvisation has some guidelines.
Yeah.
They're either really close guidelines, or, this has 4 chords.
Right.
You got to match the chords, though maybe this guy doesn't. It's hard to say. So what are your guidelines to the improv? That's the first question. And you get to figure out things. It's a combination of what you hear and what you know.
Okay.
Now, you know a lot about theory.
Actually, I don't.
Oh, no.
But I know more than I did.
Okay. Let's talk about Schmerg for a second. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, because Schmerg is one of my favorite ways of trying to figure out what happens in a piece. And Schmerg is pretty simple. The S in Schmerg, as far as I'm concerned, starts with start. Well, how does a piece start? Is it a choral piece? Is it 4 recorders? Is it a sonata? Baroque sonata. So what are the characteristics as you start? And then the 3 elements that make up a piece of music are harmony, melody, and rhythm.
Right.
And so which one of them leads? Which one of them is most dominant in the piece? Because very seldom do you have a piece that owes equally to all of those 3 things. Some pieces, the melody are, dum ba da 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 da,
Yeah.
dum ba da 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 da. Talk about an active melody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a piece that goes da da da, da 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 da, da 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 da, which the jumping around of that other melody is very, very different from that. But perhaps it's I don't know, maybe it's the rhythm in that one that I was just saying that's more important than the melody. That the fact that it goes da da da, yada da 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 da, and that's what absorbs you as you listen to the piece. There are other pieces that the rhythm is really it. I maintain that Leonard Bernstein, while he has lots of music that's dissonant and stuff, that it really is the rhythm in which you do that dissonant music, like boy, boy. Crazy boy. That is what you remember, or Beethoven, da 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 da.
Yeah, sure.
That if it was dum ba da da,
Yeah,
it wouldn't have the same.
Yeah.
So that these harmony, melody, and rhythm, it's maybe even a recipe that you want to say, well, this particular piece, it's 30% harmony, and it's another, 50% this, and so as you listen to, or actually as you think about what you might want to play. And maybe you've made some decisions about the piece. And then the last, Schmerg, the last thing in Schmerg is a G, and that's how does the piece grow?
Right.
What happens in the piece?
Yeah.
If you have an American Indian piece that's all about this beat, that doesn't change, that doesn't get faster, that doesn't get louder, doesn't get slower, how does that make the piece work? Things like that most pieces, at least composed pieces, develop in some way, they change in some way. So basically when you're improvising, when you're learning how to improvise, you're learning how to be in control of these different aspects of how to create your own piece.
Okay, right.
So it's kind of spontaneous composition.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the way I think about it.
That's great.
But
yeah.
but it's baby steps of composition.
Yeah.
That's really, I think, the tough aspect of it to actually sort of go back to the very basics and figure out, well, what are the elements of this piece? I mean, I as I see it, we're starting with 4 chords,
Yep.
and
they sound.
yeah.
which is the Bergamasca for those who are just yeah. So okay, let's play a little of it for them.
Okay.
And guys, you're going to notice that there are some notes that don't exactly seem to fit. We've been talking about them too, and we can't figure out what to do. So we're just going to play it the way it is.
Okay.
And there you are, yeah. And now, how would you characterize that? How would you, what about the melodies makes it?
Well, I think it sticks really closely to the chords, and it's a very narrow range of the melody. We don't go very low, we don't go very high, we don't really go much below. I guess D is the highest note, and I think C perhaps. So it's just a little octave and
an octave and a note. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's not a whole lot of change in what he's doing.
No. It seems to me that someone said to him, "Look, you got to follow the chords."
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. He's
Yeah.
following the chords and he's playing the triads.
Yeah.
Do that for a
Yeah.
second, would you?
Okay.
Okay.
Just
Bum,
Yeah.
bum, bum.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking that it was the second note. The second chord is G, but you're playing
It is
B
B flat. Yeah,
Okay.
it's written B flat. Yeah, which is, and then dia da da, dia da da.
Yeah.
If you were going to arrange it in some type of inversion, and the interesting thing is that, first of all, it jumps around a lot more than most melodies, doesn't it? That you have the 16th notes are linear.
Yeah.
But the 8th notes are very seldom conjunct.
That's correct.
They jump around a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
And he likes this little. Well, I mean, I was going to go on to rhythm, but he likes this little. Beat da 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 da.
Yeah.
He uses that a couple of times, but he doesn't really. I have heard and played other sets of variations that sort of go into a triplet I mean, this is basically in 2.
Yes.
And
Yeah, he doesn't do a yum ba da dum ba da bum
Yeah,
bum bum
yeah.
ba da dum ba dum dee
Yeah,
da dee
yeah.
dee dee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mr. Anonymous was maybe a little newer at this
I,
game then.
I agree. I agree.
Uh-huh.
I picked this one just because I knew I could, it would be relatively easy for me to get under my fingers. And
Sure. But the fact that maybe that means, by the way, that when you've got these dissonances, maybe they're from inexperience. If he's so
Yeah.
new at the game. Can you describe to me what practice he uses to make up his variations?
What practice? Well,
yeah,
I mean,
each one is different. So what is it? What does he do that's different each time?
Well, he uses larger and smaller note values.
Mm-hmm. And what does he do with them?
He fills in the triad. I mean, I'm just looking at
Yeah, so he takes his triad and he fills it in various ways. I think what I'm fishing for is that he takes an opening nugget of some type of pattern, and then he repeats it on the next chord, and then he repeats it in the next chord.
Yeah.
And then he does an ending.
Yeah.
And that happens a whole lot. Yeah. Okay. Da 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 dee. Da, 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 dee. So that often happens at a bar. So it happens with this bar, and then it happens that bar, which makes kind of sense because the chord changes every bar.
Right.
And so the
so
pattern
he's
changes
it's
every-
almost creating a little series of here it is in this chord, here it is in this chord, which is one of the things that I've thought about is, well, this is how you practice this, is do it,
I think it is how you practice, but I'm not sure it's what you end up playing.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not musically very interesting.
Yeah, so I guess my answer to is, well, you just memorize these things and then you spit them out. That's how you practice them.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily what happens in a performance, because in a performance, supposedly it's like opening up the floodgates, right? And so you've got this much of what you know and what you've prepared for, and then you've got this much of who you are right then.
Uh-huh.
And if I were looking at this and I was thinking what I was going to do with it, maybe. Maybe that. So it's a little different. What did I do? I did an opening thing. And then I decided to start the pattern on the second bar. Third bar, I do it. And then I do an ending. But I also tried to put a little character in there. I started out as vigorous, I ended up as sweet.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing to remember that you can put some of yourself into these things too. Can you do something for me? Try something.
Sure.
Okay, I'm looking for scales. I'm looking for a simple 5-note scale starting on the bass note of the pattern. So I want to scale on F, da, B flat, da da da, C da 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 dee da. Okay, try that.
Okay.
Now I'd like you to mess around. And that's a technical term. I'd like to add notes here and subtract notes there. Very, very little, but just okay.
This is where it gets tough.
Yeah, well, actually, it doesn't get tough yet. Okay. So, yeah, see what happens.
Okay.
Do that again. Something different.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Isn't
I
that
lose
interesting?
I lose
second
which chord I am. Yeah.
Well, I think when we're talking about what things to practice, that's one of them. You got to practice keeping the chord in your head as you do the next improvisation to make sure you're improvising on the chord.
Yes.
Obviously, according to Mr. Anonymous here, that's hard.
Right.
That's hard. What? What do you mean?
Maybe not a requirement.
Maybe not. But for the moment, we'll see how close we can get.
Okay.
Because what you were going to play was actually kind of close. Maybe it wasn't the chord.
What did I play in E, I think.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems when I start doing this. I listen, but then I forget, what note is this that I'm fingering?
Yeah,
No.
that comes from, I think, doing it a bunch.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we're still in our, when in doubt, revert to the scale.
Okay.
Thank you. You just illustrated the other thing that happens when people start improvising. They lose perhaps a little contact with the rhythm.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I also played the wrong note.
Oh, did you? Oh, well, then play the wrong note proudly.
And so I went back into the chord. I hit F instead of E.
Yeah, it's kind of easy to really lose touch with what's going on around you.
But I think you're right. I mean, I think rhythm is the hardest thing. Even when I
Yeah.
do ornaments, if I have a complicated ornament, I lose, where am I in the beat?
I think it's not a coincidence that his patterns have a lot to do with a particular rhythm. He starts out with this rhythm, then he repeats that rhythm on the next chord, and repeats that rhythm. And it's a way of really making sure you don't get lost.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
But it's a little harder when you have a scale. So that's why, and get a da 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 do da 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 dee dee. Sing one for me.
Okay. Just the scale?
No, you're welcome to start with the scale, but
Okay.
see if you can start. Make many mistakes loud and proud.
Okay.
To empower our
Okay.
home people to
Let's
do
see.
the same thing. Okay.
Let's see. Da 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 da.
Do it again. That's something else.
Da da. No, let's see. Da 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 da.
If I was going to do yum ba da dum ba da 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 dum ba da 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 da. Yeah, but I'm cheating a little bit because I told you to do scales, and I thought, well, that's just, I'll maybe tart it up a little. Avoid the scales, or don't worry about the scales
Yeah.
for a moment, but see if you can get to the chord when it comes.
Okay.
Okay.
Da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum.
Okay.
Dum.
If I was going to give you this idea to play around with, dum ba da 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 da, then what would you do?
Okay. Dum ba da 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 dum bum ba da. See, that part of the problem is I'm not the greatest singer. Dum ba da 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 dum da 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 dum ba da 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 dum dum ba da 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 dum da 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 dum.
Yeah, and I noticed that you're not really getting used to that 4 chord. Yum da 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 da.
Yeah.
Yum ba da 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 da. Yum ba da 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 da. Perhaps. Yeah. And one thing I do, I'm in a jazz workshop now, which is fascinating to me because I've had jazz teachers, but I've never really played with people. And they suggest that you go home and you play the chords on the piano and you sing things to them and see if you can approach the chords from different places. Yum ba da 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 dum. If it goes there, that it's tempting to go yum ba da 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 da. Yeah, but if you were doing real harmony, written down harmony, they'd say, oh, don't go to that octave. They'd say, do counter emotion.
Yeah.
And here's an interesting question: that how important is it when you're improvising to be correct, theory-wise, composition-wise?
You mean in terms of don't have a skip?
No parallel fifths.
Yeah.
And my favorite story about that concerns Monteverdi and Artusi. Artusi was an opera composer, kind of second-rate guy. And he got on Monteverdi's case because he said that Monteverdi was an improviser. And as an improviser, he was used to not really having strict chord
Uh-huh.
progressions, and that he wouldn't really be a good composer until he stopped improvising. And he did. He did. He stopped playing. He played viola bastarda, which is basically one of these amazing show-off viola da gamba parts where you play all the lines of a madrigal, sometimes at the same time, and jump.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
would improvise that type of thing, which of course was fiendishly difficult. But sometimes he had parallel fifths, and sometimes there were tritones, and sometimes he was on a G and a B flat chord, and so Monteverdi stopped improvising so that he could be a good
Monteverdi.
yeah. So improvisers, they follow different rules than people who actually had written down compositions.
Right,
So
right.
the business where there's a G in the B flat chord, and we're thinking, huh?
Yeah.
And it happened a lot.
Huh. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that just because they hadn't worked their way? They're coming back to the next chord, and they haven't quite figured out how they're going to get there, and they end
I've
up on the wrong.
experienced that myself.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, how to do that. And it was very much like jazz in that mistakes were used as fodder for the next musical idea, rather than, what are you going to do in the middle of a performance if you're,
Right.
You do it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the bum ba da da da, da 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 da, and then the idea of let's go back to that idea of using a motif, a rhythmic motif,
Okay.
a melodico/rhythmico motif, and see what might happen as you were going to use that. Okay, I'm going to play it this time. Okay.
So.
Let's make an easy one. How about dum ba da dum?
Okay. I'm thinking, and on the F or on any note in the.
That's a good question. Start on the F.
Okay.
And just do the roots. Duh.
I didn't do what you did though.
No, I liked what you did though. I'm just here doing guidelines so that you can make. No, I don't do what I did. I like what you did better. What'd you do, by the way?
I did a scale. I did the first one up the third, and then the second time I did it up the scale.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Now, how can you vary that? The dum ba da dum. Start with that and think that you're going
Okay.
to take it as your basic and you're going to vary it.
Okay.
Yeah, and what you just
Yeah.
did was interesting because you didn't do it every bar. You did the first bar, and you did then something like it the third bar.
Yeah.
So dum ba da dum ba da 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 dee dee dum ba da dum ba dee da da dum ba da 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 dum ba da da dum da.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do it again and do something like what you just did, which is to use that rhythm on the first bar and the third bar, but
Okay.
not on the other two.
Okay. Let me think about it for a second here now. No.
Actually, don't think about it. Just kind of sing something from your ears.
Okay.
Do it again and change it.
No.
That's fine.
Oh, okay.
Change it. Throw in a few 16th notes.
I'm in the wrong key.
Yeah, you want a different second chord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's fine.
To the B flat?
I don't care.
You don't care. Okay.
Four, B flat, D, and F. Okay, that's 164. I'm happy with that. Yeah, but you see, it's possible doing this some to actually find something that you didn't expect to play, but you kind of like.
Yeah,
And then, you know, yum ba da 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 da.
yeah,
Ya
yeah,
da da
yeah, yeah,
dum,
yeah.
ba da
To
da
keep
da
going,
da
to make it
da
more varied.
da da. And the way to practice that is to basically give yourself little requests. Okay, this time I'm going to do the first bar of the scale is going to go up, the second bar of the scale is going to go down. Yum ba da da
Okay.
da da dum ba da
Okay,
da
I
da dee. Dum ba da da. The third one I'm going to go both up and down. Dum ba da 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 dee. Last one is an ending. So you make yourself kind of requirements. And then you do that in a bunch of different ways. Or you say, okay, I'm going to do a scale, but I'm going to start it on the third of each chord. So what would it be? Ya da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. That would work.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and you practice doing that, and then each time that you said to me, "Oh, that wasn't good," and I thought, well, why not? But it wasn't necessarily what I asked for, but then I just asked for that to get you started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was also mostly because it wasn't in the chord.
There were times.
That I think is the
Though if you're playing and you find yourself not in the chord, then you just go
keep
on.
going and try and get yourself back in.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can also sometimes dum ba da da dee dee da 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 da. I can't be in the wrong chord. Da 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 dum ba dum bum 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 ba da da.
Yeah.
It's the
Until you're back there.
Yeah, it's the distraction principle. But you see what I mean? To do this, it's a very flexible practice, and it's fun.
Now, one of the things that I think would probably help is if I were to record the chords.
That's a great idea, and then play over them.
Because I think that's one of that I would be hearing them as I was going along, rather than if you go.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's fine, except that the chord is not a C chord.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that, and I think that's if I try, sometimes I just try playing around, just picking up the instrument and seeing what I can make out of it.
Uh-huh.
I think that's worthwhile, but if you're trying to do this in a more systematic way, which of course is the way my mind works.
Yeah.
It really helps to have those chords underneath.
I think you're absolutely right. If you have GarageBand on your computer, a lot of those have a looping factor. Looping is
I don't
very
have
useful.
GarageBand, but I think I have. I mean, I know I've used something, the Android version or the Mac, the
Yes,
non-Mac
well,
version.
there are versions like
Yeah,
that, simple,
yeah.
programs, and they all have looping, which means that you put down those chords, the F and the B flat, and put them down as chords, and then you basically take that section
Oh, and then just keep
and then
plugging it in.
either keep plugging it in or just say repeat
Yeah,
forever,
yeah.
and it'll repeat those chords for you.
Okay. That's
There's
a
lots
good-
of ways of doing that. You can
Yeah.
also sing it with a voice recorder. You can play
Yeah.
into a voice recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you can get, some long-suffering child slave to
Right.
just keep going.
I know.
But especially when I'm asking you to take an idea and extrapolate it over these chords, to be able to have the chords there just rolling, is a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this version that we've got here is, it's, I don't know that I'd keep saying it was tarted up, but it looks to me like an exercise.
Yes.
Yeah. And some of them aren't from the division flute. I mean, I think of, there are a few, one of my favorites, Johnny Cockeye Beaver.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that one. Yeah.
And-
I sort of picked this one because I thought I don't want to really work on have this session be about let's make sure we get all the notes in the variations that are written. Let's talk about the
how to do this, how to construct it.
Yeah.
Ask me some more questions if you can think of some about something or about the piece in general.
Well, actually, I guess one of the things that I noticed in this piece, but in other pieces, is this business of, how do you change the rhythm? This is pretty straightforward into, in like it says 3/4, but it's really kind of in a 6/8 kind of.
It goes back and forth. Again,
Yeah,
they
you're
didn't
right.
feel that there was so much of a separation between the 6/8 and the 3/4. It
Right.
said it was 6/8 notes, and so you could.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, well, what do you do?
And I guess I wasn't really quite sure how to,
well,
how
here
to
you
think
are,
about that.
and you're on an F chord, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Give me 9 notes in an F chord.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
And I got B flat.
No.
That's all right.
No,
No, I want a C chord here. So keeping track of the chords as you're doing
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
something
yeah.
that that's
Yeah,
why
it really is the hardest thing, I think, for me.
yeah, and to expect the chord to be there. Not only noticing when it happens, but to go towards it because you know where it's going to be. I find that really hard in jazz.
You mean, I'm just not sure what you mean.
well, like for example, knowing that the B flat's coming,
Yeah.
that means that you're going to prepare for it. Like da 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 da. You're going to lean into that.
Yeah.
But if you didn't expect it to be there, then
You'd have to jump somewhere. Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I like
There's a
going
link
from,
that
yeah.
from, yeah, and that actually is, I think, when you think that's what this thing doesn't have. I mean, this really
No.
just goes bum, bum,
Peace,
each,
peace. Yeah.
chord,
Yeah.
chord, and whereas some of the more interesting ones do have that transition, and you just have to be so aware of where you are.
You do. It's a
and-
different way of listening.
well, yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right.
most of the time when you listen to, when you play, you make sure you're in tune,
Yeah,
that you're in time with the other guys.
yeah.
In tune, that you're playing the right notes, that, your breath, you're keeping your breath. What else are you doing when you're playing? Just trying to
Well, you're
support.
thinking about where where the line is going, and I mean, I
So you're
certainly
thinking about stuff. Too.
yeah. I mean, I certainly listening, like if I'm playing with a a bass line, a harpsichord or a gamba or something, I'm listening to that, but because
well,
I
you listen
have
to
it,
what's happening.
because I have where I'm going
Yeah.
written on a
That's
page.
right. It's a different
it's
type of listening. It's like
exactly.
in a movie that you've seen a whole lot, and a movie that you're just watching for the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
yes.
it's that expected, and you're going here, and to be able to reinforce that and make it exciting and an adventure. That's what interpreting music is all about.
Right. Right.
But this is different.
Exactly, and I
Yeah.
think that's and it seems to me that looking at something on the page and playing something on the page, especially when you're playing with somebody else, it is about that communication of
Yeah.
Okay, we're coming to this. How are we going to do this? What do we want to do with this part here? And listening to following that person's lead, saying, okay, well, I want to take us
Right.
this way.
That's
that
a conversation.
kind of conversation
with
yeah.
known music, with written music.
And
yeah.
and the more technical skills I get, the more I think I can do that. Because basically, I'm not so concerned about, where do my fingers go? What's my tongue doing? And I can listen more. But this, but it's still tied to what's written on the page.
Oh, yeah.
How am I going to bring out what's written on the page?
Well,
and
to me, it's what am I going to do with this?
yeah.
Some of it seems totally reasonable. Some of it really seems off the charts. And what am I going to do to make this whole together as a piece?
Yeah.
Because obviously it's from a different tradition, which I would actually probably just start improvising myself.
Well, then, so it seems to me one of the things that's gotten me interested in improvisation is that it does seem to me to be almost like the epitome of understanding a style that you know that you
Yeah.
have it so well that you don't need to have somebody else telling you that you can do it yourself. And you know,
Yeah.
it's like clearly, you know, I'm not there. You know, I don't, and it's
No, but did you notice when we did those little things that it really wasn't that far away? I mean, you can certainly play a scale.
yeah.
And you can certainly, then you find yourself changing it automatically.
Yeah.
Which is what you need to do when,
Yeah.
when you're playing a piece of music. Nobody gives you prizes for playing exactly the same.
Right.
In all
Right,
the
right, right,
different
right,
places.
right.
And so you combine what you can do with, you know, you're going along, you're thinking, I need a change, and then you do something else.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
it's a different way of keeping track as you're playing of what you just did and listening for what you just did and trying to remember it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, how often do you really remember what you just
I
did?
very rarely.
Because
Very
that's
rarely.
that's
very
not
rarely.
necessary in playing written music. You want to play something as, I mean, I do think a little bit about remembering what I did, because I think of the next things as things that come from what I just did. So
Right.
I try to remember, but I don't need to repeat it. But
Right.
you do
And-
in some of this. You're choosing to repeat the rhythm and change the tune a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's I can see why people find it a little daunting, because it's not that people don't have these skills, it's that they're not used to using them.
I think that's right. I think that's really
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I think everybody actually that I know, especially beginners, have these skills because they don't know so much, and so they're there for listening and playing. So I think that if you've got a reputation, you've got much more to lose. And the idea of making mistakes in public isn't one that's totally accepted in our classical world.
That's true. That's very true.
But in a lot of other traditions, it's what you do. You know, you take chances. Sometimes you make mistakes. You create something in the moment, and then it goes away.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you for doing this with me. I just wanted
Oh,
to
thank you. This has been
explore a
great.
little bit.
This
Yeah.
has been really wonderful.
And I bet you have some ideas on how to keep going.
I do. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.